Okay, let's move on to doing the canopies. So before you can start with your needle turn applique, you have to first cut out your canopies. So there's already the seam allowance captured in there, and I have given you some wiggle room within your piece. So we're just going to center it, and then I'm going to take a marking tool and I'm just going to draw right around it. If you were worried about your piece shifting, what you can do is take a piece of tape and just anchor your template so that it doesn't shift around on you while you're drawing. Okay, so there is the first canopy drawn. Now you're going to come in with your fabric scissors and cut all the way around. Once you have your little forest canopy cut out, what you want to do is take a measuring tool. I'm just using a seam gauge here, and your marking tool, and you're going to go around the entire perimeter and you're going to mark a 1/4 inch dot. So basically what you're looking to give yourself a stay stitch. So we're just going to create a guide for ourselves all the way around, so that we know exactly where we're going to put our stay stitch. So this will give us our guide for when we're coming in to do our basting stitch. Now the basting stitch is an optional thing. You don't have to do this. This is just what I have found much easier when it comes to needle turn applique, is to actually thread baste it. Now I would have thought that this was going to be fiddly and longer and not really give me the added benefits that the additional work required. And I can happily report that by basting it first, I found that I've had better results with my needle turn applique. So as I said, this is an optional step. It does take a little bit of an extra minute to add in these notches, but I have found that it makes it a lot easier when we get to the next step. So I'm just making sure I have my guides. Okay, and just like that, we have our guide. Let's move on to the next step. When it comes to securing your canopy in place to perform the needle turn applique, you have a couple of options. You can either glue baste it, so you can kind of add a couple of dabs of glue and secure it in place, or you can, there's these applique pins, which are, they're smaller than regular pins, and it just makes it a little bit easier for you to baste your pieces in place without sticking yourself all the time with needles. So if I show you that and I show you my regular needles, just let me grab one. So you can see how there's quite a bit of difference in the length of them. So these guys used to poke me all the time and I used to not love it. So I switched to these. I still sometimes poke myself, but not nearly as much as I did with these guys. So I just mentioned it, totally optional. You don't have to go out and get these. I just point them out that if needle turn applique is something that you want to get into and foresee yourself doing a lot of, you may want to consider getting some applique pins. Okay, now before you tack anything down, one of the things I want to point out is you want to leave a little bit of space, not too much space. So you don't want it overlapping too much, but you don't want it to be up here either. And so you're looking for a fine balance of making sure that you have the 1/4 inch so that once you're done flipping it under, it will land like that. Rather than like this or too far down. So we just to stay on target, what I like to do is kind of bring it up and then I overlap it just a little bit. because I don't want any gaps there. For myself, that's my own personal preference. But so I like to make sure that there's a little bit of an overlap. Once I have that in place, I like to secure things right there because I don't want anything shifting. I know that this is the most important part of where I want things to align. Once I have that done, as I said, you can come in with some glue if you want. You can just add in a couple of dabs. You don't need you don't need a lot. You're just looking to prevent it from shifting on you while you're doing your applique. If you're going to do the pin route, same thing. I just like to make sure that I have a nice flush alignment before I come in with my pins, and then I'll just pop a couple in just to make sure that things don't shift around on me. So there's one there. I'll put another one in here. So another one here. So needle turn applique really does tend to be all about the prep. If you set yourself up nicely, then the actual needle turn part isn't so bad. So that is how I'm going to start by setting myself up. So I have my piece over here, making sure that I have it overlapped by a 1/4 inch and making sure that once I flip it under, I'm not going to have any of my background peeking through. I've made sure that this is nice and lined up, that things aren't going to shift on me, and I've already done my stay stitch guide so that I can now come in and do my stay stitch. Okay, when it comes to doing your stay stitch, what I recommend is that you work with a contrasting thread. So you want something that's very visible, that is going to be evident that it's not supposed to be there. So I'm just going to take a good amount of thread and then snip. Now, you do not want to, you're not looking to knot your thread here. We're going to be leaving ourselves a nice tail. Okay, so a couple of additional tools that you may want to have in your needle turn applique is thread gloss. Now, you don't have to work with thread gloss. This is entirely optional. What it does is it basically coats your thread, and the coating, so I'm coating it in beeswax. This is completely natural, 100% natural beeswax. And what it does is that it coats your thread and it helps prevent tangling and knotting and all of those annoying things that can happen when we're working with thread. The other thing that I'm going to use is I like to switch to my straw needles. So these are size 10, can you see that? Yeah, size 10 straw needles. Whatever needles you enjoy working with when you're doing your binding will work just fine as well here. But basically you're looking for a thinner needle, not too much bulk, nothing that you would use for your big stitch hand quilting. Those would be like an embroidery needle will be too thick. If I can get these separated. There we go. All right, so brand new needle, good, always good thing to have. And I'm just going to thread my needle. Just gonna give myself a new, if you're having a hard time threading your needle, just giving yourself a nice clean cut usually can help. The other thing is usually you bring your needle to your thread, not the other way around, which I always thought was interesting. Okay, now for the fun of thread basting. Now I actually like to do this flat on a table. I find that it actually works the best, and it helps prevent some puckering all in here. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to start right where I want things to be aligned. And so I'm going to come in here and just take my first stitch. Now, the key here is you want to leave yourself a tail. So a good tail, don't go too short, but definitely leave yourself a tail. And as you're doing your stitch, just make sure that you're not pulling your thread too far through that you end up pulling this guy all the way through too. So you don't want him to come undone. But since this is just a basting stitch, we're thread basting this into place, we don't need to secure that with a knot because we're going to remove these anyways. So what we're doing is we're following our guide, the marks that we made to create a stay stitch. So again, I like to, after I take a couple of stitches, I just like to come back and make sure that things are nice and flat and that I haven't gone and distorted the shape. So this doesn't have to be perfect. You're not looking for anything. You don't have to worry about your stitches being consistent in length. All you're looking for is to create that stitch guide. This will also tack your piece down so it doesn't shift on you, and it will create this really lovely seam that will help you turn your fabric under after for when we get to the actual needle turn applique part. So take your time. This is not about rushing through this process. It's just where we're just looking to keep these two pieces of fabric tied together so that we can come back afterwards and do our needle turn. Okay, so there you have your stay stitch done. Don't cut these threads, leave those in place. And you can see, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. You're just looking to get your piece tacked down. And now that we have it tacked down, we can move on to the needle turn applique part.